The voice of sharing Durian ASEAN.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, today is a Friday. How's everyone doing?
Yes, a very beautiful Friday. It's the end of the week almost. And what are you going to do for your Friday night?
And before that, this is Gowri.
Oh, this is, of course, Arlene.
And this is DurianASEAN.com.
And today we are going to share with you all the news and also issues regarding on Southeast Asia.
Yes, and we have a couple of news here that we're going to be discussing soon.
Mm-hmm.
And we have news about ASEAN. We have news that is local and that is kind of hot and pressing. Then there's also news from Myanmar, Singapore. So what should we start with?
Of course, we should start with ASEAN first. The first news of today is by The Star, reported regarding on the moving ASEAN into the spotlight. That was the title. It was actually a news about Malaysia. It is seemed to be getting ready to chair ASEAN next year, but the lack of awareness among all parties on what is in store for 2015 is actually worrying the government.
And I think it's not just about the politicians. Even a lot of Malaysians that I spoke to don't actually know about ASEAN. They're not well aware about what ASEAN is, what is the aim of ASEAN, why was ASEAN formed in the first place, how many countries there are in ASEAN, and of course we are preparing ourselves to chair the ASEAN meeting next year, but we still lack the awareness, and we I think need to do something about that and spread the awareness among the Malaysians.
Gowri, do you know that? Did you know that last week Friday was ASEAN Day?
Yes, I did, Arlene.
Guess who was actually forgotten about ASEAN Day? It's
you?
actually no. I actually remembered really well ASEAN Day. It was actually the day where Malaysia and all other 9 countries form the Southeast Asia Nation Association, which is short for ASEAN. And the person who actually forgotten about it is actually our International Trade and Industry Minister, Datuk Sri Mustafa Muhammad. This is what was quoted by him. My people are failing in their duty to alert me that today is ASEAN Day. And it's a big day, and next year will be even bigger. Malaysia is chairing ASEAN. He was actually very frustrated of his staff for not informing him that that day, which was last Friday, is actually ASEAN Day.
Yes, and also when we posted it on our Facebook page, a lot of people commented saying that they didn't know there was such a thing called ASEAN Day, and
it's not just them. I mean,
time.
prior to this, I was actually clueless that there is such thing as ASEAN Day. I mean, of course, we have Malaysian Day, Merdeka Day, Hari Raya, Deepawali, and all other religious festival. But to say ASEAN Day, it will just leave like a blank face to everyone if you ask them.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna pretend too. I know there is an ASEAN Day, but I have no idea where does it fall, what day does it fall on every year, and I never really bothered to look into it as well. But I guess now that I know there is, and it's a day for all these 10 ASEAN countries to come together and celebrate our diversity and celebrate our differences and also our strength and weaknesses that we all have, and to also be more integrated since we have this 2015 ASEAN thing where we'll be one integrated community.
Yeah, they call it the ASEAN Community 2015. But the ASEAN coverage in the media is not good enough. In fact, it is almost none. I mean, if you look at the media, especially our local media, where, as you know, the chairmanship of ASEAN is just a couple of months away, but they fail to even make a significant coverage on ASEAN Day. And it is a big issue for the government because we are supposed to create, I would say, like a huge awareness on the importance of ASEAN, regional integration, and the holistic understanding that it's not just about Malaysia, it's about the other 9 countries together with Malaysia as well, which is the whole ASEAN.
And apart from that, we also have an ASEAN song which we played on our station the other day, so people can.
We play quite frequently, actually.
And especially on that day, of course, we wanted people to know that there's not only an ASEAN Day, there is an ASEAN song, and there's also the ASEAN Charter, which when I interviewed Dr. Leonard De Rees, he begged, or he was very adamant that everyone in the 10 ASEAN countries should read this ASEAN Charter and really know what ASEAN really is about, and what is this whole thing for, where is this going, where are we heading, or as you like to say, actually the way forward for the ASEAN bloc over here.
Yeah, I totally I would say that it is the first summit that involved ASEAN 10 leaders, while the second will see them meeting their counterparts from China, the US, Russia, Japan, South Korea, Australia. That is why the ASEAN Community 2015, as well as the chairmanship of the ASEAN Summit next year, is very, very vital.
And it seems that one of the suggestions that came out during the ASEAN Community meeting was that they should have an ASEAN lane at immigration checkpoints. What do you think about that?
That is quite interesting.
And it seems that it is an old idea, said an officer, but it's a good one, but not a lot of countries are implementing it, of course. And our Prime Minister Najib also said that the situation of lack of awareness must change, and had directed Wisma Putra, MITI, and other agencies working on an aggressive campaign to promote ASEAN in Malaysia.
Surely. And just to show you the numbers, in 2012, only 34% of Malaysians have heard of ASEAN Community, compared to, guess what, 96% of Laotians or people from Laos. That's a very depressing number. Consider Laos is a very secluded country. It's mainly, I would say, underdeveloped, and it is, in fact, it is a country that, if compared to Malaysia, you would say that Malaysia is much more developed and much more accessible when it comes to information from the outside.
And that is surprising, because we actually do learn it in school. I think.
Oh yeah, we did.
I wouldn't blame our education system for this one, though I'll probably blame it for other reasons. But I do remember clearly learning about ASEAN back in school. I can't remember what class was it now, but the teacher definitely did a good job explaining it to us.
But Gowri, I think what is lacking is the continuity of the awareness. Like, if you learn it in school, people would probably assume, it's part of like history class, or it's part of like, learning about the government structure and the whole regional entities. But in reality, this sort of organization, whether it's regional or even international, it affects either directly or indirectly to our lives, and it's important for people to actually be aware of its existence, and see how they can leverage themselves towards this regional organization.
I think it also goes back to all the NGOs that the government is relying on, all this youth movement to reach out to the young people, because these are the future leaders of the country. And I think Najib is also calling out for the private sectors to chip in and also do their part in raising awareness of ASEAN among the people in Malaysia.
Talking about private sector, I was just Googling around. Apparently, CIMB ASEAN Research Institute, or CHARI, in its short form, is gathering 50 of the most outstanding university students locally in Malaysia to discuss about the various issues relating to the ASEAN economic community. I think it's a very positive move.
Yes, it's great that CIMB is actually doing their part as a large corporation, and it's very important for people to come up with more initiatives like this, because otherwise it's very hard to round people up and to get everyone together for a dialogue or for a discussion.
In fact, I have to highlight the global movement of moderates are also, doing their part at highlighting issues related to ASEAN. Most recently, during ASEAN Day, they held a forum on it, as well as the government. Also, they held ASEAN Youth Forum, which I believe that, maybe it's just one forum here, one competition there. But the more awareness it is, the better, especially when ASEAN is not really something that would click into a person's mind, especially in Malaysia.
And I think it falls back to us too, as Durian ASEAN, to raise more awareness on this ASEAN matter, and to make sure people out there learn more about ASEAN as it is, about all the 10 countries that are involved. And maybe we can also do something to get people in on the ASEAN Charter so that they are more aware of it.
Yeah, maybe one of our topics should be about ASEAN Charter itself. So moving on to the next news is in Indonesia. It's about Indonesian guard sentenced to death for murder of M-Bank officer. So an Indonesian security guard was sentenced by a high court here. I believe, is it in Malaysia?
This was the case of this one woman who was shot at a bank last year. I don't know if you remember. And it was a very big news. And no one knew who shot her, because the guard was he was not facing the camera. Obviously, he knew where the angle was. We couldn't see his face, but we could see exactly what he did. He went up to the woman who was almost leaving the bank, and he shot her right in the head and left with bags full of money.
And the woman's name is Laode Ardi Rasali, if I'm not mistaken.
Sorry,
it's
that's
the guard's name. Sorry about that.
The officer is Norazita Abdul Talib.
So he will be to sentence. He will be hanged until death for committing robbery and firing a shot from a pump gun with the intention to kill the officer.
And in his judgment on Thursday, High Court Judge Justice Akhtar Tahir ruled that the prosecution has proven both charges against the Indonesian beyond reasonable doubt. And in convicting him, Justice Akhtar held that Laode has willfully fired the shot against the victim to commit robbery.
I guess finally justice has been served, but at the same time, I guess I'm not a fan of death penalty. It's just not my thing.
Well, it's I'm not all for it either, but I just hope that the family feels better now that this guy has been caught and they know who did it, and they probably not totally avenged, but they can probably have a peace of mind knowing that the guy has been caught, and justice will be served for losing Norazita.
But I also want to back a question regarding on the robbery itself. Like, he's a security guard.
He was a security guard, but his ID or his license was not real. So that's why they had so much trouble trying to track down who did it, because it was a fake ID. And then they were trying to reach out to the agency that provided him to the bank to find out, to see if they can get his details. But I guess that took a very long time to sort out as well.
Talking about another crime that has been committed, which is the sodomy crime, is Anwar's appeal hearing set for October 28. We discussed yesterday morning. If you still remember, we talked about how Saiful is pressing charges towards Anwar regarding on a defamation case on the sodomy. So the federal court here has set October 28 to hear the appeals involving Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim.
And the opposition leader's lawyer, Ram Karpal Singh, said on Thursday that the federal court has set the date that you just mentioned, October 28 and 29, to hear cross appeals of both the defense and the prosecution team.
So just to put a bit of a rewind on what really happened, Anwar, was actually acquitted by the High Court on January 9, 2012 for allegedly sodomizing Muhammad Saiful Bukhari Azlan, his former aide at Desa Damansara condominium in Bukit Damansara, which was on June 26, 2008.
But the Court of Appeal overturned the acquittal and sentenced Anwar to 5 years in prison for the offence. And Ram Karpal said that the court would hear a third related appeal on October 14, where the defence is attempting to disqualify Tan Sri Muhammad Shafi Abdullah from acting for the prosecution.
Mm-hmm. Another crime that is also happening in it's also happening, but the location is in Myanmar. Apparently, a Hong Kong professor held there over Buddha lake tattoo plans to ink over image.
So this is another news. This actually happened last week, I think, when someone took a picture of the Buddha image tattoo that he had on his leg, and they posted it on Facebook, and it obviously went really viral, and it got a lot of negative attention because they were not happy that the Buddha was placed at his leg, and also to do that in Myanmar was probably a bad decision on the professor's part.
It's interesting because I would see the situation in Myanmar to be very similar to the one in Islam. I still remember a few years back, there's this one lady, she is a Muslim, and she wore the word Allah on her neck via the necklace, and the authority in Malaysia got very, very berserk about this. To them, it's like, no, you can't wear the name of Allah in anywhere of your body.
But the problem is sometimes these people don't actually know, and they're probably not aware of our sensitivities here and the way we think over here, the way the conventions that we are used to. Because for us, like especially for the Myanmar Buddhist, any part that's below the waist is considered unclean and not sacred. And I think that even for Indians, we actually consider that the same thing. If you want to get an image of a god, you would do it like on your heart or on your arm. If you do it on your leg, it's absolutely unacceptable. It's very disrespectful to the god itself. So I think that's the same case that happened here, because
it went viral.
Yeah, and he had not just one, he had, I think, 3 or 4 images of Buddha all over his calf area.
But it's quite normal for people with tattoos to have images of Buddha, right? I've seen it before. Westerners or, people in that general, sometimes they get very appreciative of their own religion and they want to put it on their body. You can see that with footballers. They have tattoos of cross. Or for example, David Beckham have a huge cross tattoo on his body.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's on his body. It's not really on his thighs or on his legs, because that's the part that is considered as it's not really sacred. It's not clean and all that comes with the religion and superstition and all.
So just to explain how severe the issue was, both of them, when they were traveling there, when they turned up at their hotel, for rest, 5 days later, more than a dozen government officials, just bang in their door, say that, hey, we are going to arrest you for, doing this, for having a tattoo of Buddha on your body.
However, it is interesting that his girlfriend is from Hong Kong, and she did not warn him about it. Or she was probably just as clueless too, because he's from Canada, but she, being Asian, I would probably think that she's aware of our sensitivities around here, but I guess she didn't say anything to him about it. Didn't give him any sense of warning.
I don't think she even knew about it, I believe.
Because he could have probably, covered it up with jeans or something long. But yeah, it seems that now he's going to cover up his tattoo to get something else to go over that Buddha image and to help him travel, maybe to make it easier for him to go to other countries. And I think it's better that way, that because you never know when you go to a different country what's accepted there and what's not accepted there.
Well, it can be as simple as that. But what I am seeing here, religion in Southeast Asia, in particularly countries like Singapore, Malaysia, even Myanmar, they have replaced religion as a faith for spiritual belief and for individual own personal understanding of God, to something ideological, something that is based on a power structure. Because it's ideological, things like tattoo is being seen as taboo, which I personally, I would not be able to understand if I'm from an outsider's perspective, seeing it from an outsider's perspective.
I think even not being an outsider, being in Malaysia, I would definitely think that it's your body, and you can, if you want to get a tattoo, you want to get yourself ink, you can do it, and you can do it any part of your body that you like. It's absolutely your freedom. However, I do think that when you're getting an image of someone's god or some religious symbol, it's probably best to
be a bit more sensitive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just look into it and see. Because even when you go to Sabah or Sarawak, if you have some tribal tattoo on you, and some people know that this doesn't actually mean anything to you, and they will actually tell you off, like, why the hell do you have this tattoo? Like, what does it mean to you? This is supposed to be for our tribe. This represents us. And some of my friends actually had that. So in order to prevent that, I think it's best to research into your design and make sure that you're not, how do I say it, violating anyone's, that you're not being disrespectful to anybody's culture, like what happened in this case.
Yeah, that makes sense. Moving on to another news. This time is about Ebola. As we all know, Ebola is a huge epidemic there at West Africa. But now there are a few false alarms happening in Asia. And one of it is in Singapore, where there's a false alarm where a Nigerian woman was sent to Singapore hospital, but she actually did not have Ebola.
I think it's not just Singapore. This thing has been happening all over Asia. We're being so paranoid.
Remember the case Ebola in Hong Kong?
Yeah, that's right. And even in Malaysia, I've heard a lot of people speculating, saying, "Oh, you're down with fever, you're down with sore throat. You better check that could just be Ebola." You know, people are getting so paranoid, and I think it.
But I want to applaud the governments. Mm-hmm. I saw the government of Malaysia as well as the government of Philippines and a few others, I guess. They put out signs and infographics and just warnings on the Ebola symptoms. And I think it's important for the public to know.
It is important, and it is definitely something that is worth applauding, that they are trying to increase awareness on Ebola, and people deserve to know what are the precautions that they can take in order to keep away from this deadly disease. And it is being widespread all over West Africa, like you mentioned, and even it has also gone spread to US, and it's definitely very contagious.
They have one case in US right now. But you know, talking about the Nigerian woman in Singapore, I think the media played a really huge role in terms of either I think in towards sensationalizing the issue. For example, the Straits Times in Singapore sent a tweet at around 3:45 in the afternoon saying that Singapore may have its first suspected case of Ebola via that Nigerian woman who was in her 50s. And she was identified as a possible Ebola case by doctors at Gleneagles on Tuesday's morning.
On Thursday morning.
On Thursday morning.
I'd imagine that this would definitely draw a huge outcry from the public, where people would be freaking out, being paranoid, because if one person gets it, it's so easy for it to spread, for people to other people to start contracting this disease. And it makes sense that people will overreact over something like this because it is a deadly disease. There is no cure for it, and you can just die.
Yeah, and the virus strain that is affecting West Africa right now is the deadliest among all the different strains of the Ebola virus. It's called the Zaire Ebola.
But the Straits Times did tweet again and clarify the situation. So, but then again, they did stir up the crowd a little bit, I guess, like you said, in the context of sensationalizing the news.
Mm-hmm. So I guess when it comes to Ebola, we did cover a feature story on our ABC Focus. You can listen to it at our YouTube podcast.
That's right. Just Google Durian ASEAN Ebola and you should be able to find a video where we talk about all the symptoms, the treatment, and how fast is it spreading all over Africa, what are the steps being taken and all that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, in general, you can always find us on Facebook and Twitter. We would love to communicate with you. You can send us comments, and you can always send us an email if you want to privately communicate with us at durianasean@gmail.com.
And don't forget to also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We upload videos almost every day, from Monday to Friday. Videos, a podcast of our shows, and also videos from our guests with their special messages to all our listeners.
Yeah, that's true. And it's me, Arlene, signing off.
And this is Gowri. We'll see you again on Monday.